Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week, the one show where you don't have to worry about being judgmental because we do it all for you. I've got a fantastic panel with me. For the first time back in a while, Candice Holdsworth is here. Ben Habib, haven't seen you for a while as well. Welcome back. The legend that is James Whale. And of course, Howard Cox. And there's so much plankery to talk about, much of it coming from the government. Candice, let's fire away straight away with the man in charge.
Yes, so this is the big story of the week. This is Labour axing the Winter Fuel Allowance.
Yes.
And I think the plank here is Keir Starmer and Labour's hypocrisy on this issue, because they've done a dizzying about turn on it. Not too long ago, about 2 years ago, Keir Starmer was tweeting about how when winter comes up, pensioners are worried about keeping their housing warm. 3 years before that, they actually did their own research into how being cold during the winter causes excess deaths. And it forced Theresa May and the Conservatives to backpedal on the issue. Now, suddenly, they are the party of austerity.
Well, there's actually a clip. I don't think we're going to see it on this show, but there is a clip from May of this year, just before they won the election, of Keir Starmer attacking Rishi Sunak and saying, you know, is it true that you're thinking of getting rid of the Winter Fuel Allowance for pensioners in order to plug the £54 billion black hole, which they now say they didn't know was there? And unless somebody's got a time machine, I'm afraid, he didn't come forward into the future and discover that he didn't know. They knew. And also they were against it then. So, I mean, Ben, talk about hypocrisy.
Well, I mean, it is utterly hypocritical. And the thing that keeps resonating in my mind is we shut down, and supported by Labour, vehemently supported by Labour, we shut down the entire country in order to protect the elderly during the pandemic. And so we spent £500 billion plus doing that. And now to save £1.5 billion, they're going to throw the elderly under the bus.
And they're not even going to save £1.5 billion because they've already earmarked £400 million to be sent to councils to ameliorate the problem for some of the poorest pensioners. And now they're likely to probably water it down a bit in the October budget anyway.
So the whole thing's pointless.
The whole thing is pointless.
But they're going to give 300, 400 quid rise to pensioners as one I speak. I'm very glad, looking forward to it.
This is the triple lot that they've got nothing to do with them, though,
But why has nobody ever asked one of these Labour people, because they won't come and talk to me.
No.
I don't blame them, I wouldn't either. Why has nobody said, why are we still giving £10 billion in foreign aid to countries that don't need it? Why did you cave into the trade unions? And why on earth are you continuing to use this ridiculous idea that net zero is going to save all our lives?
Don't get me started.
And that must make fuel bills even more expensive.
Exactly.
Well, exactly. I mean, there's so many things. Let's have a quick look at the hypocritical tweet, though, from Sir Keir Starmer. I think this one is from 2022. Looking ahead to the winter is frightening, says Keir Starmer. I've met pensioners who have no idea how they'll heat their homes, parents who will have to skip meals with their kids so they can eat, and the Tories are too busy fighting each other to notice. Labour has a plan that meets the scale of this crisis. They've got a plan.
Let people die.
No, take their money away, then they'll die even quicker. I mean, worse than that, they actually did their own research in 2017 when old Jeremy Corbyn was the Labour leader. Keir Starmer, of course, commissioned it. Keir Starmer was the Brexit secretary, I think, in 2017, was he? Still desperately trying to get us back into the European Union. Their own research says 4,000 people will die if you take away the Winter Fuel Allowance. And now they're deliberately doing it. Now, I say that if you deliberately cause the death of somebody else, that's a crime, isn't it?
It's a very serious point. If they're doing this knowingly, it's a very serious point.
Absolutely right.
But why is none of the mainstream media taking them to task about it? Well, I don't see anybody saying...
They're not doing it on TV properly, but we are. I had a Labour MP, because 50 Labour MPs, the biggest rebellion yet, and he's only been in 9 weeks, right? 50 Labour MPs voted against.
But they didn't have the guts.
But they abstained, right? I spoke to one of them this week, and she said, well, of course, we abstained because, I want to stay in the Labour Party. So they were threatening. So they were threatening people. They were throwing them out of the party. This party was elected into government, saying we're the party of service. We're bringing back government for the people. Self-service is what I'm calling it. Because guess what else they're doing? Do you know £425,000 of our money went south in the last 5 years to pay for heating in the second homes of Labour MPs who voted to take it away from pensioners? Isn't that disgraceful?
It is.
And it's a minority government. Let's remember that. The minority of the people in this country voted for them.
Right.
And
but
Keir
with a
Starmer,
massive majority, though.
Keir Starmer's famously keeps saying 52% vote in favour of Brexit wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So he should be resigning on the strength of that argument, or having another general election.
I mean, I think they're in an awful lot of trouble, this government, because, you know, they might think that they can do what they want, but as this is clearly proving, this whole winter fuel crisis thing, they announced it weeks and weeks ago. They didn't really want to have a vote on it. They had to have a vote on it. People are still talking about it. It's still front page news. Even The Guardian is calling for something to be done in the October budget so that, you know, people can actually afford to eat and heat their homes. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Well, people are telling me that, quite honestly, this could be his poll tax.
Yeah.
And this could be downfall. But unfortunately, with his majority, sort of a lack of confidence vote, I'm afraid he's going to ride that with ease.
You know, the crazed Carol Vorderman, who's done nothing but praise Labour, you know, for the last, 2-3 years, ever since she fell out with Michelle Mone. Even she's saying she's given them 2 out of 10, and she's calling on Keir Starmer to apologise for putting this taking this heating allowance away from pensioners.
It's because I think what it exposes is their lack of ideas and their lack of vision. They can't own the policy themselves. It is cruel, but they always have to throw it back on the Conservatives. We're trying to plug this black hole, which they keep saying.
And nobody's buying that anymore.
No one's buying it.
No. They're all left-wing. They are Corbynistas in disguise.
It's absolutely wretched what they're bringing in.
Yeah, they're going to attack anyone that's got any money.
Their employment laws. Have you followed what they're doing with the employment laws?
Well, they want everybody to work from home 4 days a week for
Absolutely.
a start.
Yeah.
And the Working Time Directive, which companies had the ability to opt out of when we were in the EU, they're going to make mandatory for all private enterprise. Absolutely absurd.
Right.
And they're introducing a requirement, get this, they're introducing a requirement for companies all employers across the UK to maintain a register of ethnicities and evidence. Evidence. But you're right. You're right. Any employer, I should just say.
What if it's none of the above? Yes. And you go, well, I've got this list here, but I'm afraid none of it applies to me. You know. Now let's go on to the next nominee, because Ben Habib has gone for the very popular BBC.
A guy called Trevor Assison, a lawyer, put together a team of lawyers and data scientists to look at the output of the BBC for the 4 months post the 7th of October massacre in Israel, and found 1,500 examples of where they've breached their own standards in the way that they've described Hamas. And we, of course, know that as viewers, those of us who are balmy enough, and I am on occasion stupid enough to put on the BBC, know that
you won't be working there again, will you, Ben?
Well, they don't have me off. They don't have me on often anyway. But we know that they're biased. I remember being at the Cenotaph on the 11th of November, 2023. Watching the so-called far-right thugs who'd come to pay their respects to those who'd given up their lives for this country, and the way that they were policed and dealt with. And then I went to see the Palestinian March, where they were literally advocating the destruction of a democratically settled state, the only democratic state in the Middle East. And, of course, we know the police were doing nothing. But then I went home to watch the BBC, and the BBC were eulogising this march, this Palestinian march, taking place, in my view, offensively on Armistice Day, marching all the way from Hyde Park to Nine Elms, chanting things which I found utterly abhorrent. And we knew from that moment we've got a problem as far as this issue is concerned. And it comes back to the point you were making, Candice, earlier about how our children have been hijacked. Our media are hijacked, and through the media, our mainstream media are hijacked, and through the media, they reinforce the messages our children get at school. And this is a classic example. Hamas, good? No, not. It's a prescribed terrorist organisation. There's a reason why.
And they still don't say that. They still say, which they changed it from not mentioning the word terrorism at all to, who some countries have prescribed as a terrorist organisation, including Britain, by the way, which they don't mention. Also, there's been numerous reports. Jeremy Bowen, who used to be a very, very well-respected foreign correspondent, the best foreign correspondent in the world, many would say, has somehow, gone native when it comes to the Middle East. And he famously did a report which had massive ramifications around the Middle East, where he claimed that the Israelis had bombed a hospital, killing 500 people, including loads of children. It turned out, one, that the hospital hadn't been bombed at all. The rocket that hit the car park of the hospital was in fact a Palestinian rocket, which had misfired. It killed something like 20 people in the car park, no children at all. And then later, when it turned out that he had got it wrong, he actually gave an interview on a podcast to say, I did get it wrong, but that doesn't bother me at all. I don't regret that I got it wrong.
And of course, when he makes that admission, by the time he makes that admission, Mike, it is settled as truth in 99% of the
they were having
heads.
demos in Iran, in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, in Egypt. They were all demonstrating against Israel because they thought they'd killed a load of kids.
Yeah, I remember we covered it on Plank of the Week at the time. We nominated BBC Arabic for that false report.
That's right.
It was quite obvious that there was a huge imbalance there to anyone who was paying attention.
Right. Well, the people working for BBC Arabic were fired because they were actually putting out tweets, liking tweets in support of the Hamas attack on October the 7th. That's how bad it is. But I've got some even worse news for you, Ben. I don't know if you've seen today's reports about Hugh Edwards. Tim Davie and Samir Shah, that's the Director General and the Chairman of the BBC, were in the Houses of Parliament yesterday for a Lords Committee hearing, at which it was revealed, and Samir Shah actually said, time for a review into all the Hamas-related stuff, at which it was revealed that Hugh Edwards, who has been ordered by everyone in the world to pay back the 200,000 quid that he removed from the BBC now that he's a convicted paedophile, turns out they've requested that he return the money, and as of yet they haven't heard back.
No kidding.
Right? No. And so when Tim Davie was asked, well, have you given him a deadline? He said, no, I don't believe we have. And you're going, well, what are you going to do then? If he's not going to pay you back the money, are you just going to let him keep it?
But it's outrageous, isn't it, that Tim Davie's still in office?
Yes.
Hugh Edwards should have had his employment terminated the minute he brought the BBC into disrepute.
Of course.
Which was 6 months before they stopped paying him that money, which is how he got 200,000 quid.
But the BBC is secure under Labour now, aren't they?
They are.
The licence fee's going to go up and up. I'm going to say they're secure. They're loving it.
Right.
They won't. The public won't stand for it.
They won't.
They will not stand for it. You're quite right. It could be their poll tax moment. Yeah. Although, some people thought the poll tax, although it was called the poll tax, was actually quite a good idea.
Yeah, I was one of those people, actually.
And me.
I thought it was a great idea.
But this could cause a lot of people to get very angry.
It will.
They don't represent the ordinary person anymore in this country, do they?
And I think we're going to have a look at Tim Davie answering the questions there.
What is the current status of the BBC's attempt to recover the £200,000 of salary paid to Mr Edwards?
The BBC's position is clear. The money should be returned and we've made the request.
Did you set a deadline?
I don't believe we set a deadline, but we do expect to make progress and get an answer.
James, over to you. Lee Carsley, the apparent England manager, although he's only a caretaker manager, isn't he?
Well, as you know, I hate football.
Yes.
But I do care when people insult my country.
Yes.
And this pillock, I'm sorry, I could use on my own show stronger terms. This idiot said he wouldn't sing the national anthem.
Yes.
Because it took his mind off the game or something. And then the other
apparently
idiot,
can't think of two things at the same time.
Yeah. The other idiot, Gary...
Lineker.
Him, yeah. He apparently didn't like singing the national anthem either.
Why does that not surprise
me? Did Gary Lineker say that?
He did say that, and it didn't make a lot of news, but it was in one news bulletin that I saw.
Well, listen, I'm pleased to say that we have it here for you, so let's
really?
I used to kind of sing a bit, but not too loud because my voice is terrible. I always felt a little bit self-conscious singing on a football pitch. Didn't feel comfortable with it. I don't know. I just think it's a bit weird.
You know what he's really saying, don't you?
Yeah.
He's really saying to his lefty crowd of appeasers, I'm a bit ashamed of the British flag, and I'm a bit ashamed of playing for England.
Where
and I'm a bit
would
ashamed
this
of singing the
world
national
be
anthem.
without Britain?
I know.
Think about it.
I know.
We would be in the Middle Ages probably still.
Probably.
And history.
Well, we're going back there rapidly.
We're on our way.
History of all countries in the past has things that in this day and age you would not do.
Right.
You would not say. But we cannot complain. When are they going to? They're going to go and try and start to get the statue of Churchill and topple that.
Unbelievably.
Margaret Thatcher's photograph.
Yeah.
What is wrong with these people?
I mean, we made Keir
Starmer
Starmer Plank of the Week for removing that. That was last week, but
you can't read a book with a Margaret Thatcher photograph.
Well, no, but again, it was more lies because he said his reasoning for it was that he doesn't like people staring at him. Yeah. It's like, well, you're the Prime Minister. There's not people looking at you. He's also got an office in his own parliamentary seat in Westminster, full of portraits of people.
So he said he preferred landscapes as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he's an idiot. Let's just. Yeah. Keir Starmer is not my Prime Minister, because they use that term for lots of things.
They do. Not
but
my king.
I do have a royal family, and I like the way our royal family is hereditary. I like the fact that they're not political.
Yes.
And I think for this prat to actually say, I'm not singing. You know, what sort of human being is this that insults the country and is still thinks he's going to be the manager of the football team?
Should it not be a
country?
question that when you apply to be the manager, you know, they should say, will you be willing to sing the national anthem? Because it doesn't really matter if you're a foreign manager, for example. I mean, we've had foreign managers of England. I think Capello didn't sing it because he didn't speak any English. You know, I don't think it was a political decision.
The players couldn't understand.
I mean, because they actually hired a guy that couldn't speak English, and so no wonder they weren't very successful.
And Gary Lineker.
But we've had like New Zealand coaches of Ireland in the rugby and in Wales, and they've all gotten into it, and they sing the national anthem, and they absolutely, blast it out, because that's what they should do. Let's have a look at John Redwood. Do you remember him? When he was Secretary of State for Wales, and they tried to get him to sing the Welsh national anthem. Have a look at this.
Poor John. This is unfair.
That's unfair, the camera.
It is a bit unfair. We always call him the Mekon. But, it just goes, you can't pretend to sing it. You know, if you're going to do a job that involves singing the national anthem, sing it right, get the words right, don't bugger it up, in other words. Howard, over to you. Now, surprisingly, you seem to have settled once again on Sadiq Khan. I'm starting to worry about you. Every time you come in here, you nominate Sadiq Khan.
Well, I've been on here quite a lot, and I think probably 90% of my planks have been Sadiq Khan. Yes, absolutely right. As you know, I mean, this pathological liar. I've said it.
Yeah.
This man has actually said that he really cares about the children in our city.
Oh, yeah.
The air we breathe, all the things like that sort of thing, and these nasty things called internal combustion engine are ruining our lives everywhere possible. And he introduced ULEZ all those years ago.
Yeah.
And, what's it, 2023, September the 29th, he introduced ULEZ expansion.
Yes.
And this particular story is about the fact that this Bromley Council is in the ULEZ expansion zone. And they've just issued a report to say, since the expansion in the last 12 months, pollution has gone up. So and this is the amazing thing. The guy is actually telling porcupines big time. He's full of lies, and the fact is the only reason he's doing this is a cash-grabbing approach to rip off the motorists. And that's what's going to happen also under Starmer.
What are they doing with the money, by the way? Because they've been raking in hundreds of millions of pounds now from the ULEZ charges, from the various fines, speeding fines that they pick up on, parking fines, all that. What are they doing with the money?
There's 300 million approximately is assessed. I mean, I was hoping to have the FOI I put in about 6 weeks ago. I'm still waiting for exactly answering that question, Mike. So I have to come back on again and tell.
Well, let's not forget.
Roads, that's
the potholes. They've got a ULEZ zone in Newcastle. They've got one in Glasgow, which is not working at all. I mean, it's practically bankrupted Glasgow. The footfall of businesses now in Glasgow is down by a third. And I talk to people up there all the time. They've got the same problems in every other place where they try and introduce it. Manchester will be following suit pretty soon. I think Bristol's got one. It doesn't work anywhere because it doesn't clear the air.
The big point, Mike, and everyone here today, is this is nothing about saving the planet or the environment. It's all about ripping off motorists.
Yeah.
And this government is going to make it worse. Louise Haigh, the new Transport Minister, is actually endorsing 20 mile an hour limits, ULEZs, LTNs, cycle lanes the width of HGV vehicles, all those things. These things are going to come and hit us hard. And as you know, on your last show, I had this little thing.
Yes, this is your clean air device.
Yeah, it's not, well, it detects air quality, particulates. And coming here, I came on the London Bridge on the tube, and down by the platform compared to the roadside level outside London Bridge, it's 2,500% more particulates down there. So what's he doing about that?
Nothing. Well, absolutely nothing. And meanwhile, the congestion levels certainly in London are worse than they've ever been. I can't believe that the clean air zone is any cleaner than it was.
But it's not.
No, it's
well,
not.
the 20 mile an hour limit creates more particles.
Well, the engine works less efficiency, and it's something like 56% more emissions come out.
No, but he put out a tweet because I responded to it. I think it was just last weekend, claiming that it was working. And it was, as usual, had attached to an article which had no facts in it at all. There are no facts. It just says, we've studied. I know what it was. It was the fact that more children are now walking and/or cycling to school, which doesn't prove anything at all.
Policy is based on emotion. It's nothing to do with fact.
Right. But and if a lot of children are cycling and walking to school, it's because their parents now can't afford a car. Because they've taken it away from them, which is hardly progress, is it?
But not everyone has that option. I mean, there's plenty of reasons why people need cars. Why have we forgotten this? I swear these policies are always drawn up with just a very, very narrow view of who uses cars. They forget about the disabled, they forget about parents of young children. I mean, it's just not an option for me to walk or cycle my children to school. No. I just can't do that.
Sole traders, carers, all those sort of things. I was on Sky Telly the other day, Sky Television, and I was talking about the paper mile that's coming in. That's the sort of thing. Watch this space. That's going to hit us hard.
Paper what?
Paper mile.
Paper mile. So they charge you per how far you go.
And EVs are going to get charged too, aren't they?
Well, that's a good thing, but so should cyclists. They're using the roads.
I've got some good news for you about cyclists coming up in a little while. No, it's going to be one of my nominations coming up a little bit later on. But I mean, the point is that, Sadiq Khan has been the bane of Londoners for a very long time. But again, a bit like Keir Starmer, he keeps getting re-elected.
Only 18% of the London electorate voted for him.
Yeah. Well, I've got a little clip for you. You never thought you'd see this. This is Naomi Campbell, the former supermodel, talking to Sadiq Khan.
Would you like to be Prime Minister?
No. I've got the greatest job in the world.
Why not? I want you to be our Prime Minister.
Listen, I'm the mayor of the greatest city in the world. I get to meet great people. I get to do great stuff, and I'm making a tangible difference, I hope, to the lives of ordinary Londoners, and as long as.
But you don't have to. There's no time limit, right?
There's no time limit.
So we can have you for forever.
Well, as long as Londoners keep on supporting me, I'll carry on being the mayor.
I don't think I have a problem there.
So, I mean, Sadiq Khan refuses to be interviewed by me, but he will, or James, but he will be interviewed by Naomi Campbell.
Hard hitter.
Tells you what you need to know, isn't it? What's your favourite colour?
Mike,
would you like to be king of the world? Yes, please. And I'd like meeting lots of interesting people. I mean, what a complete and utter
Mike, where's the sick bucket? I couldn't believe Naomi Campbell would say that.
I know. How disappointing.
What programme was that for?
It was presumably Naomi Campbell Today.
Really?
Vogue television, I'm told.
About 4 people watch it.
Vogue magazine. So that's Vogue magazine. That's the pinnacle of journalism. Anna Wintour's got a lot to answer for. Coming up, we're going to be doing more on this useless Labour government. Don't go away. So, we talked earlier, guys, about the... welcome back to Plank of the Week, by the way. We talked earlier about the terrible winter fuel withdrawal, which has caused absolutely most of the country to go into paroxysms of horror. 98% of people, I think, who were surveyed said that government shouldn't be doing it. But this week, we've had another jamboree from them, and this was the great escape, as I call it, the freeing up of 1,700 lags, criminals, rapists, child abusers, domestic violence partakers, killers, people that have been convicted for serial burglary, some people convicted of massive drug dealing, all being released into the community, right, without a care for the people that they've injured, without a care for the women that have been beaten up by them, without a care for what's going to happen. And the scenes that we saw were quite remarkable. There were people coming out of prison all over the country. Champagne corks were going off. One guy was picked up in a Lamborghini by his mates, obviously still got the proceeds of the drug dealing. People were going into pubs, having parties, girlfriends turning up, taking them home for a good seeing to, as they in a traditional manner. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it was literally, somebody rang my show to say it's a bit like a Batman film, where all the criminals have come out and they're actually running the city. Right? Because the police were standing there watching them. It then turns out that some of them, who might be unable to find anywhere to live, are going to be put up in, guess what? Hotels.
And did you see the sympathetic way the mainstream media...
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
...cottoned onto this and took one of the criminals, or a couple of them, and very sorry, where are you going to sleep tonight? I don't know, I might be on a floor.
Yeah.
Really
well, he can go back in.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And talk back up.
The probation service has said that about a quarter of them will go straight back in anyway, because they'll realise they haven't got anywhere to go, and they'll just commit a crime to be recalled into prison. We've actually got a guy who was speaking to the cameras just outside this week.
A man walks out of prison with a duffel bag, £86 in cash. Well, where's a man going in life? I'm saying go to probation. What am I going to do when I go on probation? I'm going to go probation, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to get bored, I'm going to start going back into my old ways. Maybe I might smoke drugs again, I'll go out, I'll start committing burglaries at night. Next thing you know, I'll be back in jail.
Now, here's a guy who's saying, I'm a serial burglar, I've got nothing else. I've got £86 in my pocket. I've got a bag, and I've got nowhere to go. So eventually, I'll just go back to doing what I do best. And I thought to myself, well, you could get a job.
Yeah.
You know, I know that you've got a criminal record. Well, I think people would employ them. I mean, look at that guy from Timpson's.
He's done fantastic.
He hires a lot of them, right? Although, as I've always said, I'm slightly unsure of giving burglars the ability to make keys and copy them. So when you go in,
they're probably very good at it.
So they're probably really good at it. So when you go in and go, how many sets do you want? Well, that's 3 for you, 1 for me. I've now got your address off your driving licence. I'll be round, later. But it seems to me that Shabana Mahmood.
He's an exception to the rule, though, isn't he?
He is.
He is. Yeah.
But Shabana Mahmood, who is the Justice Minister, who's the person who sort of made this possible, is going to release 5,000 of these people, right? Yeah. Over the course of and somebody actually rang me up. Our viewers are very intelligent people. This guy rang me up and he said, you know what this is like? He said, it's like going outside because your bin's full, bringing the bin into your house, emptying it in the living room and putting it back out again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what they're
exactly
doing.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It beggars belief that they couldn't find some other solution to house 5,000 people. Right. And we've got 10,000 foreigners in British jails. 10%. We've got 100,000 people or so in jail. Yeah. 10% of them are from foreign countries.
But they're not trying to send them back.
They're not even trying.
Oh, we can't send them back if the country doesn't want them. But they're not even trying.
No.
And the average cost...
And most of them are Albanians, by the way. And we have an agreement with Albania. And when I was speaking to somebody from the prison service, he said, oh, yeah, we did send some back to Albania, but we had to give them incentives. So they paid for them to go back. Yeah.
Why are we spending millions and millions of pounds on detaining foreigners who should be back in their home country?
Why aren't anybody of any political persuasion stopping the invasion of this country by illegal people? You've got the flipping socialist, lovey-dovey middle class going on about people should come here, we should feel sorry. No, we shouldn't.
No.
These are people, criminals, breaking into this country.
Right.
And we're giving them a hotel, we're giving them some money, we're giving them food.
Well, maybe the only reason we'll get the migrants out of the hotels is because, we need them for the prisoners. So, there'll be a bit of a sort of there'll be a pecking order, won't there?
Mess. But why? I don't understand why nobody in the political arena has actually really yet focused on just letting this country
Well, Reform are doing it, to be fair.
I actually think it's more sinister than that. I think there's a move amongst the greater good on the global stage to do away with nation states, and they see borders in the same way that they see the St. George's flag.
New World Order.
Yeah, it's a new world order. They see it's all a bit contemptuous. It's nation states that get in the way of global prosperity and progress. And so, stop fussing about your borders. And we see that, of course, in Europe, where they've got this ridiculous Schengen zone.
Which now Germany's
saying, no, it doesn't work.
There's a shift.
No, thanks. I think that might change, yeah. I always worry about the Germans and borders, don't you, when they start talking about that. Candice, over to you for the next one.
Yes, so this is the report that's recently come out. It was commissioned by Wes Streeting, the new health secretary, who's kind of positioning himself as a big reformer of the NHS. So he got a former surgeon, Lord Darzi, to do this report. And one of the findings is that over 100,000 babies have had to wait more than 6 hours to be seen in A&E.
Right.
And I think anecdotally that seems true. I mean, I'm in the phase of life where people have children and babies, and they tell me going to A&E is an absolute nightmare. You can wait hours and hours and hours and hours. I mean, it's often for stuff that's not urgent, but it's concerning. And I think that is what they need to focus on at the NHS. Not things that are potentially life-threatening, but things that are urgent and need to be seen to, but which aren't, and which are contributing to, I think, a negative perception of the NHS.
Well, the NHS doesn't work. I don't think there needs to be any worries about the negative perception. I mean, Wes Streeting seems to think he needs a review to work out that actually it's not working at all. We've got 17 million people on a waiting list. They talk about 7, which is one waiting list, but there's a second waiting list, which is behind it, which is another 10 million people who've been seen by somebody, but are waiting to now be seen by the second person, who's a consultant or a specialist.
But they are trying very hard. I mean, I'm in and out of the hospital a lot, and the NHS as a business, if you like, doesn't work.
No.
They are completely preoccupied by things that have nothing to do, like diversity, really stupid things. When the doctors and the nurses, the clinicians are working so hard to try and do as well as they can. And I feel so sorry for them because there are very few who don't privately say, the management of this is
I'm sure.
completely...
But, you know, how long have we been talking about this, James? I mean, probably 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, the NHS has not worked for a very, very long time.
But you know why? Politicians are frightened to do anything.
Right.
Because,
you know,
if we miss an appointment, we should pay a fine.
Well, I would make people pay for GP appointments. I mean, just, you know, and that would discourage about 60% of the people that go and take them anyway, or who don't turn up. And I accept that, you know, there are plenty of reasons why it doesn't work because of the way the public actually operates as well. But nobody's willing to grasp the nettle and say, fix it. I mean, this report is also going to say this week that they've let down the elderly, you know, because there are people in all ages of life who are let down. I mean, I know people who've just given up on the NHS completely.
Yes.
And younger people now, because they're used to this kind of, you know, Deliveroo society, are going privately more often than not because they can't wait. They don't want to wait a month to see something about their foot, you know, because by then it might have fallen off.
Well, you could have something that isn't life-threatening, but which is really affecting the quality of your life.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing you can do. When you're on that waiting list, you're on that waiting list. I mean, I had an experience recently with the NHS where it was something that was potentially life-threatening. And then you see the wonder of it. Then you see the wonder of modern medicine.
They're all right at that.
Yes. But there's so much else that needs sorting out.
And to be fair, I mean, James, you won't be saying this, but you and I are at sort of a certain age in our 8th decade. And to cut a long story short, but I've had some good experience. My wife's not too well. I've been in and out a lot recently. And the front line's fantastic.
Yeah.
What gets me is when I'm going through going to get a cup of coffee or something, see a number of people sitting around doing bugger all. And they're usually in suits.
Yeah. But also, there are incredible stories that you see every day. I mean, we had one last week of the guy who went into a Birmingham hospital and he was being seen for a mental health issue. Yeah. They saw him and he was supposed to be being discharged to a mental health place across the street. He went into the local Costa coffee shop inside the hospital, because a lot of them have got them, you know, in the lobby, sat down with his coffee and was there for 3 hours before anybody noticed he was dead. Right? I'm not joking. It's a true story. Yeah. And doctors, nurses, all sorts of personnel from the hospital were going in and out, getting coffee, walking past him. Nobody thought to say, you know, this guy's been here a while.
Not even other visitors. No one saw him at all.
No one noticed he was dead. They obviously saw him. Maybe it says more about our society and didn't know whether he was just resting.
That's my point. Yeah.
But you know, he was meant to be going to be seen by some. He was obviously not a well man. But you know, what's going on?
They thought he was asleep, probably.
But that shouldn't happen.
No, you're right.
In a country which prides itself as being one of the top 5 economies in the world. It's ridiculous.
But we shouldn't be spending the money, giving the NHS a load more money at the moment wouldn't do any good at all.
No, it's a bad idea.
Because the management are not actually doing it properly.
No.
They're obsessed with political correctness. Absolutely stupid and ridiculous.
They ask you if you're pregnant every time you go.
Well, they do, and I have to say, no, it's just
it's quite offensive. You should say I take offence at that.
Yeah. Ambulance drivers apparently ask you what your preferred pronoun is. So you've got a heart attack, and how would you like me to address you?
Yeah.
I'm
dying. That's how you would have liked
I don't really care. Take me to a hospital.
Right.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
And then they get to the hospital and you have to wait in the car park because there's no room to take you inside. I mean, it is shocking.
And you've got to pay for the car park.
Absolutely shocking.
But the other thing that we never talk about is the hospital tourists, a lot of which come from America.
Loads. Well, loads from Eastern Europe as well. I mean, I know nurses who tell me stories that, you know, people just come in to have a baby in Britain because they know then they can stay. It's amazing. Anyway, Ben, over to you. You're going to pick on a union leader.
Yeah, Paul Nowak, who's taken it upon himself. He's the general secretary of the Trade Unions Congress, from whom we haven't heard a lot since they were against Brexit. Do you remember they came out against Brexit? Which was very helpful, of course, because I think they hadn't really made the connection with the British working class being the biggest majority in favour of Brexit. So they turned their backs on their own people, I think, during the Brexit debate. But they've now come out and said that Reform UK is essentially anti-working class because Nigel Farage went to a private school. Right. And, you know, it's therefore impossible for us, those of us who are in Reform and believe in Reform's policies, to be champions of the working class. But actually, Reform UK, first and foremost, is for the democratic unit that is the United Kingdom, and the majority of the people in that democratic unit are working class, and the majority of our policies are aimed at the betterment of their predicament.
Exactly right.
And so Paul Nowak, I think the reason he's come after Reform, which, by the way, has only got 5 MPs, he could have been going after the Tories, who've done some damage to the working class, or indeed his own party, which is doing the Labour Party, I imagine, is his own party, doing so much damage. He came after Reform UK, I think, because he doesn't want Reform to have the success it is going to have in taking Labour voters away from Labour. I think that's the underlying...
Well, let's have a look at what he actually said. Here's the clip.
Nigel Farage isn't a friend of the working class. He's a fraud. A public school educated, private equity loving, NHS privatising, Putin apologist fraud.
That man is giving bad reputation to people with no hair. What a pillar he is.
I know. Also, you know, the leaders of the trade unions, they're all on very fat salaries, thank you very much indeed, continually encourage their members to go out on strike.
Nigel should sue him
where they don't get paid. Well, he didn't say anything of those, anything like that. Also, if you're going to start attacking people for going to public school, well, Keir Starmer went to a school which is now
Tony Blair,
private school. Tony Blair. Yeah. I mean, you know, the fact
remains.
Do you
know Keir Starmer's father was a tool maker?
I didn't know that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he certainly did make a tool.
Yeah, he's a bit of a tool, isn't he?
So he's a tool.
You say we haven't heard much from CUC, but I have seen that they're having their trade union congress just before all the big, you know, sort of political conferences in the autumn. What they have said is that they need to now rebalance the public sector pay with the private sector pay, because they say they haven't had enough over the course of the last 14 years. So you will see, I guarantee you, you know, one request after another to this hapless government asking for more money. And it won't just be more money by 5%. It will be like 10%, 14%. The teachers are going to come for it. You know, the civil servants are going to come for it. We've already seen the train drivers getting it, RMT getting it as well. Everybody, the junior doctors, everyone who works in the public sector is going to milk this for as much as they can. Yes. And you're going to be sick of hearing about the TUC.
Yeah, I bet you're right, yeah.
Which is rather unfortunate.
We need a new Margaret Thatcher.
Yes, please.
We do. It's time for another break. We'll be back after this on Plank of the Week. We're going to be talking about some incredible situations with some local councils who are the bane of everybody's life. It's all coming up next. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. It's back to James Whale. James, you've got Sunderland City Council. Talking of working class, apparently they don't like the phrase.
Well, they don't like a lot of things. Now, I started my broadcasting career in the North East back in the 70s.
Yes.
And Sunderland's a great place. I haven't been for a while, I must admit. But for some stupid... I have to be very careful. But
no, you don't.
These people are complete and utter... Put your own words.
Planks.
Now, apparently you can't say working class anymore.
Right.
Because it is too British. And we are in Britain, are we not?
Yes.
You know, you can't say various other things anymore. You can't say a man or a woman anymore, apparently. A policeman is out, a fisherman is out.
Right.
I'm not sure whether a fisherwoman
Fisher
or
people.
A fisher or a policewoman.
Was it not Sam Smith who called them Fisher people?
Sam Smith is one of the biggest idiots going.
I know.
He
doesn't look very good in a dress either.
He doesn't sound very good anymore either. I think he's But this is quite serious.
Yes.
That a place should suddenly say, we don't want to use the term working class anymore, because a lot of people are very, you know, and you don't have to be just working with your hands to be working class. If you have a job and you work hard and you contribute to society in any form, you're working class.
Right. Do you remember during the lead up to the election, though, and the Labour Party kept using this phrase, working people?
Yeah.
And everyone was going, what do you mean by that? We now know that it meant not pensioners, basically, because
they can target the pensioners.
But some pensioners do work.
But at one
That's
point,
true.
but at one point he sort of gave a definition in which case he said that it was people who made a salary but didn't really have any savings, as if, you know, how much money you've got denotes whether you're working class or not. I don't think it does.
No. I mean, how many people on probably quite a good salary have no savings?
Yeah.
If I've got any savings, I think there's something wrong.
The vast majority of people in this country, working, middle class, whatever, are basically going from one paycheck to another.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And also, they talk about pensioner millionaire households, but they usually mean the value of their house.
Yeah, right.
But the person could have lived there for about 40 years.
Right.
And the house is appreciated in value, but they don't have a lot in the way of savings
also,
or cash.
if they end up having to go into care, they'll have to sell the house and the council will get to keep the money, which is awful anyway. But this is Sunderland City Council. Apparently it's a 17-page inclusive language guide. Also bans the word youth and divorcees.
Yeah. But I mean, if you probably don't take any notice of the rules and regulations laid out by Ofcom.
Not really, no.
But they have an enormous list of the most stupid words.
Yes.
And I try and get at least half a dozen in on my show.
Do you know, I once sat in a pub because I managed to get hold of this list and just read the words out. And it was one of the funniest things you've ever seen. People were falling about like, I'd forgotten about that one. You know, these are phrases that, words that you would use
actually someone
to describe people.
Someone's being paid a salary, or a group of people have been paid salaries to come up with this garbage.
Right.
Did you see the Oxfam document on decolonising the English language?
Yes.
92 pages of rubbish.
Yeah.
You know?
And who's doing it? There was one this week from Bristol.
Charity,
I think Bristol University was guilty of this. And it was things like... but the thing is, they want you to replace the phrase with something, incredibly, unagile, which doesn't describe whatever it is you're supposed to describe. I remember seeing one, I don't know if this was Oxfams, where they said you shouldn't be calling people migrants anymore. You should be calling them people involved in migration. And you go, they're not really involved in migration. They're bloody migrants, aren't they?
I call them criminals.
Well, you could call them that as well, if they're illegal.
The irregular replacing illegal.
Irregular, yeah.
No,
I had a brilliant caller the other day who rang up to say that he said, I'm just going out to do some irregular shopping. Which he said, I love it. Used to be called shoplifting, but we don't call it that.
I love it. I tell you what, though, as a serious issue here, the world is in a very dangerous place.
Because these numpties have got a grip of it.
Yeah, but if there was an invasion tomorrow here, or in... What would we do? I mean, our military is excellent but underfunded and treated appallingly. But the people, that sort of middle class, middle-aged, young middle-aged, they've got no idea, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, no idea in what being patriotic is. And it's all right saying, well, let's get rid of every country and have a new world order. But, we are in many ways tribal, and we actually like to have an area that we feel related to.
Also, you talk about the armed forces. I think we've got around about 80,000 people in the armed forces. We now know that over the past few years, and I'm not talking even about legal migration, but over the past 4 or 5 years, we've had well over 100,000 illegal migrants coming on boats.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's already more people than there are in the army. Yeah. So, what chance have we got?
We're a shadow of our former selves.
I know. Yeah. Shocking, isn't it?
We need to turn it round, but people don't seem to realise how important this issue is.
It is
absolutely
very important. Howard, you've got one for us about electric buses. That should be good.
We've talked a lot today about incompetence in our politicians and whether we have trust in them and the ability about this. Well, York Council are spending something like 105 million on a new fleet of electric single-decker buses.
Right.
OK. There's one problem. The single-decker bus is almost as big as a double-decker bus because of the battery underneath is so big. And it can't go under a certain certain bridges.
Right.
And it's
it's literally too big.
It's literally too big, it can't be doing it. But no one in the council, no one has actually been deployed to actually go out and say, can it go down this route?
Here it is. So it says not in service, which I presume is a permanent fine, is it?
But whilst this sounds a laudable thing to do, and all the sorts of things, as you know, I've been campaigning very much about the fact that electric vehicles are just, they emit just as, if not more emissions from cradle to grave than internal combustion engine. I've got proof of that. It's not a problem. We've got the slave labour of digging out the lithium one end, and you've got the other end of disposal of the battery.
Right.
In the middle.
Also, how heavy are these buses?
Oh,
I mean, I don't think there's
twice the weight of existing.
I don't think there's any accident that we've got so many potholes now in this country since the advent of electric vehicles. Because electric vehicles weigh what? 2 to 3 to 4 times.
More, usually about 30% more in terms of, and they're
but all the lorries and the vans and the buses.
They don't pay any tax.
Well, they will be soon, though.
Well, no, I'm working on that one as well.
Yeah, I think we've got another piece of footage of an electric bus in France. What's this one doing? There's nobody in it as well. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you see buses driving around London, electric buses, or some of them are hydrogen buses, which maybe is a good thing. There's never anyone in them.
No.
Why have they got so many buses?
And also,
they don't need them.
Most of the electric vehicles or buses actually in London go back to the station, they're charged by diesel generators.
Yeah, of course.
You're joking. Is that right? They've got a diesel generator producing the electricity.
Yep.
That is incredible. But there's so much of that going on, you know, like you see...
So many buses, nobody on, but so many bus stops crammed with people.
Yeah.
We've got the wrong buses going to the wrong place.
Well, I think Mike's point is that I think the study was done recently. I think 80% of the time a bus is on the road is empty.
Yeah. That is
your point.
Yeah, there's just too many of them. And that's why there's so much congestion. Yeah. Because you can't... There's many parts of London now and other parts of other cities where there is no bus lane. You just get stuck behind a bus and the bus stops at a stop, not always to pick people up, sometimes to smooth out the journey. Yeah. And they get told, because I've been on buses when they've said it, you know, the driver has been instructed to wait here for in order to smooth out the route. And you're going, what's the point of that? I just want to go home, or I just want to get to work. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway, coming up, we're nearly at the end. We've got to do the final furlong, my last nomination, and also my choice for Plank of the Week. And it might come as no surprise to you. The next one is about the Green Brigade as well. Bloody cyclists. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We've had a very, very good selection so far, and the final one is about a place called the A34. It's actually Solihull Council, somewhere in the Midlands. You guys may know it well. They're testing AI technology, right, on somewhere called Stratford Road near Blythe Valley. A cycle lane crosses a dual carriageway. Now, you can imagine there's a dual carriageway there for a reason. The dual carriageway carries quite a lot of cars, quite a lot of traffic. That means it's got 2 lanes on each side. And so there may well be a traffic light there, but you don't want it to turn red too often for the cars, or else it will make your life a bit miserable. But the AI is designed, by the way, by this company called Viva City to recognise a cyclist coming towards the traffic lights. And as soon as it gets to within 30 metres of the traffic light, it turns green for the cyclist, right? So as soon as one cyclist appears, all the cars have to stop, right? I mean, the good news is, I suppose, the good news is, I suppose, that this means that cyclists will no longer go through red lights because the technology will turn them all green, you know. And it's just unbelievable to me that we have literally kowtowed to the cycling community to this extent that they're going to spend, and this will be a million pound budget that they're going to do, because they're going to change all of the traffic lights all over Solihull in order to appease a very small minority of people cycling around wearing lycra, trying to stave off death.
Well, I've noticed as well, I mean, I'm often on the pavement with a pram, cyclists riding on the pavement. I mean, you'll often see grown men riding on the pavement. You sort of have to swerve out of their way. When did we start doing that?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I learned to ride on the road and use signals. Now it's just like crowding out the pavement.
It's not safe, though, because, I mean, the other one thing that would annoy everyone here, I imagine, is when you're driving along and there's a cycle lane over there that goes both ways, but there's a cyclist on the inside left of the car. And you go, use the bloody cycle lane. What are you doing there? They've spent millions on it. Why are you not in it? And some of them go, oh, it's because it's full of debris or it's too busy. Or, you know, any other excuse.
It's interesting because, you know, Ben mentioned the point, someone gets up one morning and thinks of these policies and they're being paid to do this. It's not democracy because no one's asked anyone. There are 37 million drivers in this country and I don't remember anyone asking me what I want on this road, etc.
Have a listen to this, right? Sarah McGonigal, who's the Director of External Affairs at Cycling UK, she says, historically, traffic signals have prioritised maximising the flow of cars. Well, yeah. Because there's a lot of cars.
That's the idea behind it.
That's the point. She says, as a result, people who walk and cycle can spend a lot of time waiting to cross.
Cyclists are arrogant, a waste of space, a waste of time, and a complete nuisance.
They really are.
Nothing else to say.
And they have no input whatsoever into the exchequer of this country. Whenever you get into it with them, they all go, "Oh, well, I've got a car as well." Yeah, well, use it then.
And what about these idiots who use these electric bikes and they throw them on the pavement?
Oh, that's disgusting.
They can ride these electric bikes without helmets or any protective gear. It is a total and utter nuisance, and it needs to be stopped.
Right.
And some of those bikes, by the way, not the public sector ones or the ones available for the public, but some of those private ones that Deliveroo cyclists have. I mean, they're
bloody dangerous.
They are really quick.
Really dangerous.
They're like motorbikes.
Yeah. How about this, right? Figures released last month by the Department for Transport showed that cycling accounted for, guess what percentage of trips in England in 2023?
3%?
2%.
Yeah, I wasn't far off.
2%.
So it is worth stopping every vehicle in order to allow them free passage.
And you can imagine this will hit London. Sadiq Khan will love this. better not tell him about it. I know he watches this show, even though he doesn't come on it.
It's his favourite programme.
You know. The Transport Minister, Mike, is actually pushing this out to every town, every city across the country.
Right, so it's time to choose a winner. And I think it's really between Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, and Keir Starmer, I think, isn't it? You know, we had Keir Starmer last
bikes.
week.
I hate them.
Do you? Okay.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but it's not really bikes. It's more Solihull
the riders
Council.
of the
bikes. We can't do Sadiq Khan again, sure.
We can't do Sadiq Khan again. I think at the moment we're just sticking with... We've got to... 2 weeks ago, 8 of the 10 nominees were Labour Party politicians. You know, I think just for a change, we make it Shabana Mahmood for letting out all these lags into Lamborghinis, pubs, brothels. You know, they're having the time of their lives, these guys, and they're also now being put up in hotels. So I think we'll make it Shabana Mahmood, who is the Justice Secretary of the Labour Party. Well done, Shabana. Welcome to your Plank of the Week team. There'll be a whole host of them. I predict before the end of the year, every single member of the Cabinet will have got a plank. I think it's right. Candice, Ben, James and Howard, thank you very much indeed. We'll be back same time next week with more planks from the Labour Party.